Favre and Romo in every just about NFC category are 1 and 1A. Completion percentage, passing yards to Brett. Touchdown passes 29 times the team record. Romo, passer rating, if you believe those things, it still means they're very good. So Favre, Romo coming in at the top of their games, and both teams obviously are as well. So eyes are on the quarterbacks. Let's start with Favre and Romo. What do we expect, Coach?
Well, you can tell by those highlights and those statistics that both defenses are going to have their hands full. I think the Cowboy defense is going to have problems adjusting to the Green Bay spread empty, 5-wide receiver offense or variations of. That will test the Cowboys' depth at cornerback and guys that can cover the pass. On the other side of the coin, I think the Cowboys will test Green Bay, particularly if Woodson's out, and a couple of the defensive linemen that the Packers are used to rotating on kind of a 7-8 man rotation on that defensive line, which maintains good pressure on the quarterback throughout the game. A couple of those guys out, now they're down to 6 guys. That rotation's different. It's a different defense without Woodson and a couple of their linemen.
Yeah, it concerns me, though, Tony Romo playing against Brett Favre. I hope Tony Romo don't get in this game and get starstruck. It reminds me, this game will remind me of that All-Star game several years ago when Kobe Bryant was playing against Michael Jordan, when he waved off everybody to go against his idol. And that scares me with Tony Romo, because Tony Romo, he likes Brett Favre a lot. Similar backgrounds, both gunslinger types. If you've seen that game a couple weeks ago, where he's running, all of a sudden he throws the football, looks just like Favre. So that scares me. I'm worried about that.
Well, and the thing is, we've never seen two happier guys play quarterback than Tony Romo and Brett Favre, and I think experience is going to come into play. Every situation for Tony Romo is new, whether it's the New England Patriots, we're undefeated, whether it's playing this coming Thursday and looking at possible home field advantage. I think when you see Brett Favre, Brett doesn't have a situation that he hasn't been in. You know, prime time, Thursday night, boy, we've done that, and I've done it about 20 times. So I think that the comfort level in a game like this is going to be better for Brett Favre than it is for Tony Romo.
You know, when you think of Brett Favre's career, and we've loved and we've marveled all the things that he's done, he always was, and it was part of the allure, if you will, he was the little girl with the curl. Even when they were winning the Super Bowls under Mike Holmgren, or winning the one and Bill, and then losing the second one, Tom, to Denver. It was Brett, just every now and then Brett's going to think, okay, and I know he's going to call me and say, what are you doing? 0-8 Dallas, in Dallas, do you try so hard, or are those days gone forever? I think they're gone forever. I just throw it out there, and it's for Romo. Weren't we wondering how he would respond from that snap? We haven't wondered about that for a long time. Shootout Patriots-Colts, you got shootout Packers-Cowboys. Both guys should play. It'll be fun. Ben Roethlisberger fun when he plays in the rain, the sun, the snow, what have you. To Western Pennsylvania, the cradle of quarterbacks. Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Johnny U, Joe Willie. The list goes on and on. To the guy behind center in our booth, Mike Tirico. Good evening, Michael.
Hello, Chris. Good evening with Ron Jaworski and Tony Kornheiser. And we've brought the rain back to Pittsburgh. It is really, really nasty out. And as has been alluded to, if you saw SportsCenter, they showed the top 10 plays of the weekend. And number 2 is from a high school playoff game at this stadium, a great Western Pennsylvania high school playoff game. Well, 7 games in 11 days caused them to resod the field, lay a new surface over the existing one, and it is going to be a struggle, especially in the areas where the tarp was. There are significant areas, but every 20 or 25 yards where the footing is going to be awful. How does that impact with Ricky Williams and his return, who is now back on that field for the Miami Dolphins, warming up for tonight?
Mike, if you would have asked me 2 hours ago, I would have said, really no impact with Ricky Williams back in the lineup. He hasn't played in an NFL game in 22 months. He's only been practicing with the Miami Dolphins for 1 week. And those practices this time of year, they're not even wearing pads. They're wearing shorts and shells. So I didn't think he would have an impact. But when I saw this field when we got here, it is a quagmire. It is muddy. And one of the strengths of the Dolphins is their power running game. game. They average 4.6 yards per rush. That is third best in the National Football League. Now, plug in Ricky Williams into that equation. You have Ricky Williams, a north-south power runner. So I believe Ricky Williams now becomes a factor in this game.
And the weather's not going to get any better, at least the next hour and a half or so. It'll affect Willie Parker of the Steelers as well. Matter of fact, they just asked the fans who are seating the lower bowl to seek shelter because the rain is so bad. We've had some thunder and lightning. All of that, last time we saw, Ben Roethlisberger just came out through 5 touchdowns in the first half, a Monday Night Football record. Give me your sense of Ben's season as the guys we're talking about in the shadow of all the other guys.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that the one guy going under the radar who's having a great year is Roethlisberger at the moment, because the Pittsburgh Steelers are not a team that asks you to throw 50 touchdown passes in a single game. So it's different than Romo, and it's different than Favre, and clearly different than Tom Brady. We talked to Ben Roethlisberger the other day. He had a bad year last year. He had 23 interceptions last year. Already this year, he has 23 touchdown passes and only 8 interceptions. He says it's his best year, but he knows that the Magic Letters MVP are reserved for one guy. Last night, notwithstanding, that's going to be Tom Brady. And he talked with a certain degree of envy, Roethlisberger did, as he described watching Brady, which he likes to do at games. Right. He says he stands back there, he goes, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and he picks the one guy he wants. And any quarterback would like that to happen, and it happens for Brady and not for Ben.
Well, that's an in-depth breakdown. I'm like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
Yeah.
I like that, Tony.
By the way, thanks for coming over to my side on Ricky Williams and hedging your bet, because you know I think he's going to gain a lot of yards.
Well, we don't know how many yards guys are going to get because they just repainted the field, and all the numbers have
Can't
washed
tell
off.
the yards.
That's your job, right?
Yeah. Really.
Somewhere in the middle of the field, it's first down.
Thank you. So as they continue to work on the field, it looks like a baseball after a rain delay. Chris, let's go back to you in the studio.
All right, fellas, thank you very much. And who knows if Ben will have that sort of game with the 5 touchdown passes and a half. That'd be awesome. Ricky Williams, what? Who knows what to expect? You have a clue, Ty, and you can also say if you're playing defense against a guy that really hasn't carried the ball like this for two years, what are you doing?
Well, I think this is the worst possible situation for Ricky coming back, just physically, not about attitude, not about anything. You know, he's only had 3 solid practices with the Miami Dolphins. He's trying to incorporate the game plan at the same time. He's coming back on a wet football field. It's going to be hard to get his footing. He hasn't been hit real speed, real time. I think all of those things contribute. I used to tell my defense all the time, weather like this, balls out. Guy who's only had 3 days of practice, balls really out. We're looking for turnovers. Turnovers be the difference in the game.
You can't possibly, I don't think either of these fellas played pro football for a long time, think that with 3 days of practice you can get in tune with the way this game is played, particularly in these elements. So I'm not expecting too much. I'd be surprised if he was very successful. But these elements are the great equalizer for both teams here, and things can happen when the weather's like this. And it's really an easier game to play in the mud as far as contact and that kind of thing. It's a little sloppier. You don't get that great leverage. You don't get some things happening that you do on a dry, fast track.
Why? Why is it that he's even on the team, though? I'm like, Emmett, why? You keep bringing him back, and I'm one for giving everybody second chances, but he's had a lot of chances. I can't trust him as a teammate. And I don't see him doing anything tonight. I really don't. And I think that there's some hope there for the organization. Maybe the owner has a great relationship. The coaches like him. Maybe they want to give him another chance. But as a player in my locker room, I'm washing my hands clean of it. Too many chances.
0-10 has, I think you're right, 0-10 has a lot to do with it.
So what, you're just trying to win one game? I mean.
0-10.
Hey, Emmett put it out there pretty clear, though. Jason Taylor, Zach Thomas, some of the veterans, I mean, he has let them down. I mean, we shall see. Well, a team that hasn't let anybody down this far, the New England Patriots. Last night, Philadelphia Eagles came in, meaning serious business. Tom Brady, and who thought he'd be in a duel with A.J. Feely, but he was. Feely, Greg Lewis hit him twice, second quarter. Beautiful catch. Game at this point was tied at 14. But the Patriots, as all good teams do, boy, a backbreaker is always that last minute of the first half. And Brady to not Moss, not Welker, though Welker was brilliant all night. Jabbar Gaffney with the 19-yarder, sliding in 24-21. That was the Super Bowl score. Patriots at the half. Now third quarter, Feely under pressure. But there was places down, there were seams against New England, and a 28-24 Eagles lead into the fourth quarter. Until Lawrence Maroney scores 4 yards, Patriots lead at 31-28. 4 minutes to go. The Eagles, field goal range, but they go for it. And Feely picked off for the second time of the night by Asante Samuel. 31-28, the Eagles, awfully game. But at the end, the game goes to the Patriots, and they are 11-0. And Philly's two-game winning streak, now back to a loss, and they're 5-6. So, question is, though, Philly had New England, if not on the ropes, Bill and guys, certainly had them in trouble for a while. Is there a blueprint? Can we learn something if you're another team from what Philly
Did put up 21 points real quick in that game, and you might get a subtle thing here or there that you might be able to integrate into the system that you use. Defensively, you have a certain scheme. You've taught it all year. You have certain kinds of players. I think you can just adhere maybe to the philosophy that Philadelphia used. Okay, let's try to knock this quarterback down. Let's try to make him throw quickly. But I don't think you can do the same thing Philadelphia did, because you don't have the same athletes and you probably are not running the same scheme. The thing I was impressed with Brady, that was as close as they come this year to getting to him, and he handled the pressure very, very well.
And the only thing that you can do is play with speed. That's all you can do. Blueprint-wise, you can throw that out the window. You don't have the same players. This team, that the Philadelphia Eagles put on the football field, they were good. The corners were good. Shepard's a good corner. Brown's a good corner. Dawkins is a good safety. All the teams, they don't have that. And I think Philadelphia played over their head. They have good coaches, but that blueprint isn't the same. You see it time in and time out in this league. A team rushes for 200 yards. What do, Tom? Yeah. Oh, we're going to rush for 200. Right. And we're going to run the ball 45 times in this game. And they wind up rushing for 20 yards and losing the game. And everybody say, well, another team did this. Well, how come you couldn't do it? It's not the same.
You might not be able to duplicate game plan, and you might not be able to duplicate speed, but what you can do is play with some confidence. And I think that will encourage the rest of this league. Mike Tyson used to step into the ring, and before you ever got there, I won't mention names, but before they ever stepped into the ring, Michael Spinks, you were already beat. So now all of a sudden I think teams look in and say, boy, they are mortal. Maybe we have a chance. Once you saw Buster Douglas knock him out, you knew that, you could go in and beat him. And I think even though they lost the football game, other teams now, I think, will be encouraged. If we play a certain kind of football game, maybe we've got a chance.
Well, if you go into the ring like Philly did and you're a little guy fighting a big guy, you still take your swings, right? And that's what they did. And as a result, the Patriots played one of their few 15-round bouts, if you will, during the season. I think what you saw, right, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there's some gaps, there's some seams, there's some maybe down the middle on New England. You got to be able to score with them, and Philly got 28, right?
Well, that's the thing Tom's been saying all year long, that the New England Patriots defense has a little, offense is great, but the defense has some problems.
Suspect.
Well, they don't shut out everybody, neither did the 78
But they're just suspect in certain places.
But another thing you saw is this is the first time the Patriots been in a real close game, and they didn't crack.
Right.
They won the game, and that's something you need to prove to your team every year.
Correct.
That's right.
I think that interesting, and Jim Johnson's defense are different. If you play a different style of defense, and I'm making this up, 85 Bears. I mean, a different style of defense that you don't coach against more than once or twice a year, or maybe they're not even in your division. Something that, Coach Belichick and the Patriots would be more prepared than anybody, but a different sort of thing, like Jim Johnson did, it can have you on your back feet for enough in the game. Now, one thing Philly didn't get him to do, though, was turn the ball over.
That's right.
New England was still good enough not to turn the ball over, but there's hope for the rest of the league. Hope for the rest of the league. That being said, they're 11-0. They clinched the division as early as anybody ever has since they've gone to 16 games. It's nice to have that clinched at Thanksgiving time. Let's head out to the stadium. Sal Palantonio, I don't know if we're going to sing, you guys, Mary Poppins out there, Raindrops. What's going on here, fellas? Steve, Emmett?
We got some big news here, Boomer. The Lightning has chased us off the set up top. We are now standing in the tunnel outside the Steelers' locker room. The Steelers just came off the field and into their locker room. They were chased away by the Lightning as well. And we hear that the game is officially delayed. I'm joined by Emmett Smith and Steve Young. You guys bolted when you heard that lightning. Left me up on that set to get all wet. What happens when you've got a situation like this where you've got heavy rain and you know the game's going to be delayed and you don't know when it's going to start?
Well, truly, the only thing a player can do is enter back into the locker room and then start his pregame routine all over again. as soon as he get a word, there will be football field. So I'm imagining the players are going back inside. Coaches may be going over some final game analysis, and they may be putting back on their headphones and relaxing a little bit, trying to get a gauge of when they're going to hit the field again and try to time it so they can start their pregame routine all over again.
And Steve, is there any contemplation on changing the game plan at this point when you see the conditions like this?
I think they went out and saw the footing, and I think it is much more sloppy than they ever imagined it could be. So I think it does change things because you want to put people in a place to be successful. That's wide receivers need to come in and now can tell the coach, hey, coach, I tried to run a couple out routes. I'm afraid I'm going to fall flat on my face. We can't afford to throw an easy pick to a defensive back. So I think it's going to change the game plan, no question about it. And I think this delay is also a problem just because football players are creatures of habit, especially on game day. You throw them off a little bit, it throws their whole game off. So I have a feeling it's going to tighten up game plans on both sides. A lot more running. You might see Ricky Williams 40 times tonight.
We heard that this was a great equalizer, these conditions. Bill Parcells was talking about that on the set with Chris Berman a little while ago. Do you believe that's true?
Oh, without a doubt. It's definitely an equalizer, especially for it errs on the side of Miami, who need help anyway. Tonight, you know, Miami is looking for any edge that they can get. And so without Ben Roethlisberger having the opportunity to really throw the ball all over the field, maybe they can concentrate on stopping Willie Parker and slow down that running game of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So.
You know, Sal, as well, I think it's important. They'll go back in there and look at the routes. I talk about a quick out. You're going to look at the routes that don't ask a lot of the receiver. They can go the go route. Then the turn in might be a problem just because if you're going to fall down, those are the routes you're going to fall down on. So they might go in and say, X, 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 X. These are the routes we can run. And then you go in there and just going to kind of limit that game plan.
Boomer, I'd break out and raindrops are falling out of my head, but then I'd have to keep my day job. Back to you.
Now, you're right. B.J. Thomas will be very proud of you there, Sal. Nice going. And by the way, sometimes you lay down that shag carpet in the living room. Doesn't look quite right. It might be an interesting evening here as you guys are on top of it, and hopefully everybody will be safe at the stadium and in and out. We'll continue with our reports. We could be here Monday Night Countdown to Tuesday Night Countdown. I don't know. Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. You served again in Pittsburgh. What intimidates Tomlin the most? Tradition is, and they do this, putting French fries on sandwiches. Jen on prompter says, yeah, they do that at home. In 1969, Art Rooney hired Chuck Noll at the ripe old age of 37. In 1992, his son Dan made Bill Cowher the head man at 34. And more recently, Art Rooney II handed the car keys to Mike Tomlin, also 34 years old. Soft-spoken and calm, Tomlin may not resemble the physical and intimidating presence that Cowher brought to the Steelers sidelines, but if you delve into his coaching journey, you'll meet many who have heard his message loud and clear. Here's Ed Werder.
The Pittsburgh Steelers are Super Bowl champions.
When you go to your office, as I recall, you walk right past the display of all the Lombardi trophies. What crosses your mind when you see that?
That's probably the most intimidating thing about the job is every morning you stick your car key in that door and you open that door and there are the 5 Lombardis off to your right. It's gas for me. It's fuel in my gas tank. It really is to you know, in some way live up to that legacy, in some way be the best as you can, and hopefully add to that legacy, that tradition.
For 35-year-old Mike Tomlin, the ascension to Steelers head coach has been rapid and somewhat unexpected. 6 years as an assistant in college led to his first NFL job at age 28. Tony Dungy hired him in 2001 as defensive backs coach of the Buccaneers. Tomlin's immediate challenge in Tampa was to get his players his own age to respect his authority and embrace his philosophies.
He came in with guys like Rondé Barber and John Lynch, who were established Pro Bowl guys, and he hit it off with them. He was able to show them that he knew what he was talking about. He was able to relate to them, and he had an energy that was really contagious.
His football IQ is immense. That kind of shocked me for as young as he was. He hadn't been in the NFL yet, but you felt like you were talking to a guy who had been in the NFL for 30 years with his knowledge of the game.
Within a week of being hired, Tomlin presented John Lynch, who was coming off a Pro Bowl season, with detailed analysis of 60-plus plays he had made the previous 2 seasons. Breakdowns that emphasized how Lynch could perform even better.
I don't care what you've accomplished in this league. You want to be coached. You want to be challenged every day. You want to become a better player. I know I did. That's all I told Mike from the very beginning. I said, make me a better player. Yeah, I think that's what he did.
No, baby. I love you, man. I love you too. Do your thing.
After just one season as Vikings defensive coordinator, Tomlin became the third Steeler head coach in nearly 40 years. His immediate challenge, earning the trust and respect of the Steelers team adapting to change.
Here in Pittsburgh, you got to win. And I told him that when we first went to dinner the first night. I said, we got to win. And that's, my life and your life depends on us winning.
This is our coach, and we got to bind to his system, bind to what he says. And I mean, we got to put our trust in him that, he's going to get us back to the promised land.
I know he'll succeed in this league because just who he is and what he's made up of, and failure won't be an option for him. Throw out how old he is, throw out how maybe few years he's been in the NFL. The guy can flat out coach football.
Well, Mike Tomlin, Steelers 7-3 so far, pretty much so good in Pittsburgh. The young man is head coach of the Steelers, and as we've said, that's happened before. Thank you very much, Ed Werder. If you're just tuning in, rain and more apt at lightning in Pittsburgh. Lightning in late November in western Pennsylvania, bizarre. But the game is now pushed back about a half an hour to 9 o'clock, but that doesn't stop our guys and ladies from being on the scene in Pittsburgh. Let's unravel the mysteries of Pittsburgh and check in with teams at 20 again. Rachel Nichols. Rach, stay out. You're smart. Hey. You're undercover.
I'm undercover, Boomer, because as you said, lightning chased these teams off the field just a few minutes ago. It has calmed down a little bit, and we've been given word that the guys will be back, brought out onto the field around 8:50. They're hoping they can start the game at around 9 o'clock. But I was out there with them when they were testing out that field, and Boomer, I don't know if lumpy is a field condition, but it was lumpy and soggy and just muddy out there. In fact, I have in my hands the last piece of dry grass in all of Pittsburgh, and I'm showing you this because this is actually the turf that is on the field. The whole reason the field is a problem tonight, or at least part of it, is they just installed a new field here at Heinz just in the last 48 hours, and they laid this new grass right on top of the old grass. They didn't have a chance to rip it out. So the water that's coming down right now has to get through 2 layers of grass to drain. There were guys out here with pitchforks earlier today, but that hasn't helped so much, and players were telling me that things are pretty bad out there. In fact, a few Steelers said the field is much worse than the old field that they were trying to replace. Receivers were telling me they are going to have to change their routes. A few of the backs told me that they are just not going to be able to cut today, and the biggest change will be the kickers. Some guys might be taking a delay of game penalty on field goals because there is mud at the 25-yard line. Boomer, we might see a big change to this game.
Well, something to keep. We hope nobody gets hurt, Rachel. That would be a real shame. Thank you very much. Stay dry, and hopefully conditions will allow a nice clean, well, it won't be clean as far as the laundry is concerned, but a nice clean football game. Little different. Our pick segment coming up. 0-16 Dolphins will weigh in. Wake up tomorrow, you're gonna be living the right life.
Delivered by UPS. What can Brown do for you? And in part by GMC. Watch SportsCenter after the game for the GMC postgame and Defensive Player of the Week nominees.
Well, with the weather, Bill, unfortunately, had to cancel the blimp shot, so we're going to go right to this. Tom, with that big pick on Denver, you've opened up a nice 2-game lead over Emmett and Key and Stu and me and Steve. He 3 back, the Weasel. Look at everything that's out. Now, look, we're all on Pittsburgh, all right? We're all on Pittsburgh, so let's stir things up. Here's Miami's schedule. Remaining schedule for the Dolphins. Tonight, you know where they are. Then they are Week 13 at home against the Jets. That'll be interesting. Week 14 at the Bills. Week 15 versus Baltimore. Will be coming off those games that Baltimore has against New England, coming up in the Colts, and then at New England, and then home to Cincinnati. That's the remaining schedule for the Dolphins. So you hate to do it. Will the Dolphins go 0-16, Tom? Could they do it?
No, they're not going to go 0-16. I think they're going to win 1 and maybe 2.
Weasel doesn't like bagels. I think they win.
Weasel doesn't like bagels?
No, he doesn't like bagels. You know, bagels.
I know what they are.
Donuts.
I have them every day. Donuts. What do you think?
0-16.
You do? Why?
I was 1-15, and I beat Arizona in front of 8,000 people. And Arizona was the worst football team. I don't see a team in the league like Arizona when I played them.
They got to win one. They got to win one or two. Plus the 76 Bucks. They were so lovable. They went 0-14, and they were so bad that they went out and lost their next 12 the next year before they actually won again. They're not this. The Dolphins are not that. I don't know. That's just a thought. We're out of time. Well, we're not, but we'll explain that in a moment. For Tom and for Coach and for Key and for Mort and all of us here and our ladies and gentlemen at the stadium, I'm Chris Berman. Thanks for watching Monday Night Countdown. We will see you at halftime. Can the Steelers bounce back? Can they find their rhythm? Will Miami get one step closer to history they want no part of? Big Ben, Willie Parker, Ricky Williams debut Monday Night Football. Next.
Chris, thank you. We welcome you live at 8:30 Eastern Time to Heinz Field, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where the rain is still coming down quite heavily. And 40 minutes ago, as Ben Roethlisberger and the Steeler players were starting to warm up, shades of our last visit here when Baltimore was in town, Jeff Triplett telling Mike Tomlin there's dangerous weather in the area. The field will be cleared. And about 10 minutes after 8 o'clock, 20 minutes ago, Eastern Time, the field was cleared. And that's why instead of you have loud, rowdy Steeler fans ready for the kickoff between the Steelers and the Miami Dolphins, we have a bit of a delay instead of those people sitting behind me. Hi, everyone. Mike Tirico. Welcome to Pittsburgh. Here's the situation. The National Football League has been very proactive over the last couple of years when there's dangerous weather in the area, and there's lightning in this western Pennsylvania area with a storm front that's been dumping about an inch of rain here in the last 24 hours. So the plan is, and they've looked at the radar and talked with the meteorologist, to delay the start of the game until 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So kickoff should come just at about 9 o'clock Eastern Time. At that point, they figure all of the dangerous weather will be out of the area, and we'll be able to get the fans back in the stands, the teams a brief warm-up opportunity on the field, and the game going itself. Now, as for the field, that is a very significant story. They play a lot of football in this Heinz Field Stadium, including the Western Pennsylvania High School Championship games and University of Pittsburgh football. What that means, in addition to the Steelers, this field takes a pounding, and sometimes under inclement weather in November. A natural grass surface is down. They laid 4 inches of fresh sod over that natural grass surface, and what you have now is sod that's been sitting down for 36 hours with rain pounding down on it. It has been concern number one for the Steeler organization and all the people who work here at Heinz Field. So let's go down to Susie Colbert and get an update on how the field stands right now as we wait in this delay until 9 Eastern for kickoff. Suze?
Well, Mike, I spoke to Chris Ecton, who is the Heinz Field turf manager, and of course, the rain is really the worst thing that could have happened. They laid 2.5 inches of new sod down on the old turf. The old turf was tied down, but the new sod is not. They were hoping that it would be heavy enough that it could hold. The real problem is they've had tarp on over the field, but the tarp had seams and the seams leaked. So in those areas, the field is lumpy, soggy, and not holding together all that well. All the field crew can do right now is try to keep up with painting the lines because the paint was fresh as well. So when it started to rain and rain heavily, that paint was washed away. So that's what they're working on right now, at least being able to keep lines and numbers on the field. Drainage, that could be an issue too because they're not really sure once the rain gets through the top couple of inches if it will get held up or be able to continue draining. What a way to welcome the Dolphins to town. Michelle Tafoya has more on that.
Yeah, well, I spoke with Trent Green, the quarterback who's on IR, obviously, for the Dolphins, but he is still with the team, helping coach up the young quarterbacks, Cleo Lemon and tonight's starter, John Beck. Trent told me a couple things. First, he said, as Susie just detailed, this field is in horrible shape, and there are spots on it where your feet simply sink down 1 or 2 inches. Then he told me that the Dolphins came into this game with basically 2 game plans. One, if there was decent weather, and a plan B if the weather turned as bad as it is right now. And it didn't take them long to switch to a plan B. For this young quarterback, John Beck, he's going to need now to rely a lot more on the running game. And Jaws, I guess, a contingency plan in this kind of weather, not uncommon. It goes well beyond just putting different spikes on the shoes and having the rain gear ready, doesn't it?
Ron Jaworski, Tony Kornheiser join us. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's no question. Plan B will be in effect tonight, and maybe even Plan C, as Michelle reported. Very good reporting, by the way, talking to Trent Green, getting that report. And what teams normally do, Mike, throughout the week, they will change the game plan if they know that there will be inclement weather. I will guarantee you this afternoon, when they saw that front moving in, you had both quarterbacks with their coaches discussing the game plan, what they would change. Here's what you want to do. When you get a field like this, you want to eliminate some of your bootleg stuff, the waggle stuff, where the quarterback moves outside the pocket. You want to keep him stationary in the pocket. You will limit some of your counter tray runs. You want to have your linemen, the offensive guys, the road graders, coming off the football, knocking people off the football, not having to pull and make those sharp cuts. When you got 340 and 50-pound linemen on a turf like that, they'll be slipping and sliding, Tony.
You're a quarterback, so I know you care about quarterbacks.
Yes.
I'm a sports writer, and I look at a game like this, and to me, the standout thing is Ricky Williams, after almost 2 years gone and pretty much forgotten, is going to come back and play. Not going to start, but everybody says he's going to play. I want to see him run. I remember Ricky Williams as a Heisman Trophy winner. I remember Ricky Williams as a guy who led this league in rushing. And I also remember he walked out on his teammates, and also remember he failed a lot of tests and got suspended a number of times. But I have a great curiosity to see, what does he look like? Can he still play? Can he still run? Because he was at one point a great runner that I believe Mike Ditka gave up an entire draft class just to get Ricky Williams. He's the standout, sexy character to me in this game.
It's been 99 weeks since he's played an NFL game. He did play in the Canadian Football League last year. He came out for pregame warm-ups. First time he took the field in the NFL in almost 2 years. And we'll see him coming up with our kick again for just joining us because of the rain, delayed until 9 o'clock Eastern time. Hey, before we go back to the guys in the studio, let's talk for a minute about the importance of this game in this division. The standings in the AFC North. Pittsburgh is 7-3, and Cleveland continues to win and continues to win in an impressive way, and now they are 1/2 game behind the Steelers. Steelers need to win tonight to stay ahead, but remember, they did have the success against Cleveland here in the regular season, so they hold a tiebreaker advantage if we get that far. But Jaws, when you look at Pittsburgh 7-3, there are impressive parts to it, but once a month they have found a way to lose a game that didn't look like they should lose.
You know, in the National Football League, if you want to go deep in the playoffs or even the Super Bowl, you must beat the teams that you are better than. The Pittsburgh Steelers have 3 losses on that L column right now. They lost to the Arizona Cardinals when the Cardinals were a losing team. They lost to the Denver Broncos when the Broncos were a losing team. And they lost to the lowly New York Jets, who are still a losing football team. And I call it mental toughness. You know, when you have a big game, a Monday night game, a rivalry game, a division game, you're always ready for it. The championship teams, those that go deep in the playoffs and maybe even win the Super Bowl, beat the teams that they are better than. They're mentally tough. Now, I'm not saying this Steeler team is mentally weak, but Coach Mike Tomlin's got to get them ready for the games that they know they're playing a team that talent-wise they should beat.
Mike Tomlin, who you see in this shot, has not had to raise his voice all year because he was 7-2 at one point. And why would you raise your voice? When he lost to the Jets, he absorbed that personally and spread that out to his team, you know, Monday and Tuesday. And so we're not going to have this happen again. We root for good competitive games because we want people to watch the games all the way through. I'd love to tell you that the Dolphins have a great shot because of this field. I think the fact that the Steelers lost to the Jets will make them every bit aware that they have to beat the Dolphins tonight.
And again, as Michelle and Susie told you earlier, some key injury news on both sides, and the headlines really come with Troy Polamalu and Santonio Holmes out for the Pittsburgh Steelers here tonight. So that's the story. We have rain and threatening weather delaying our kickoff slightly, but kickoff will come at 9 o'clock Eastern time. And since we're sending it to Chris, we should say it's a special weather delay extended edition of Monday Night Countdown with Boom and the gang. Chris,
All right,
back to
thank you, Michael. That special weather delay. It's not that special, but we're going to kick it around before the teams kick the ball off, as you mentioned, right around 9 o'clock Eastern, which would be 4 o'clock Hawaiian, where they don't have bad weather that often. So, Coach, many a game you've coached in bad weather. Key, you played wide receiver, many a game. Tom, you played defense, many a game. All right, so what aid do you alter? They've known for about 24 hours that it might be like this. Right. And 2, now what do you change or what do you guard for now that you're about to take the field?
Well, this is an unexpected thing because this is really very inclement conditions. So I'm going to walk into the locker room and I am going to gather my whole team and I'm going to be speaking in a pretty loud voice to them. And I'm going to tell them something like this. All right, I know what's out there. They're not canceling this game. I don't want to hear any more about what we can't do, what shoes don't work. I don't want to hear about that. What I want you to understand is what you have to do to win this game. And the first thing I want to tell my team to do, at all costs, we want to play the game on their end of the field. Now, if we win the toss, that probably means I'm going to kick off, fellas. We don't want to let them out from their end, because if there are any mistakes made, we want to make them on their end of the field so that if they make them, we capitalize on them. And if we make them, they've got to go the whole length of the field to do it. So that's what I'm saying.
Have you heard this speech, Key?
Can you imagine listening to this?
Well, you heard this, right?
Going around, coach will go around, look underneath everyone's cleats, get the long ones, and start messing with your mentals. And it's not his fault, but that's the way he coaches. But the rain, I would trade the rain any day for cold weather. I don't like the rain, Tom. Well, I got to catch footballs and I have to stop, cut, turn. That's just not comfortable for me.
You know, I'm the only one on this set who loves this weather. I'm looking forward to the exchange of ball at any time. That's center quarterback exchange. That's the quarterback turning to handoff. And it's not just the weather. We got to remember it's the soggy field as well. So footing is going to be bad for everybody out there, even if I'm in a pass rush mode. Every lineman in the league sets his feet to block. As soon as he does, I'm bull rushing him, I'm making a move. He's not going to have the footing that they usually have. This is such an advantage to the defense over the offense. Coach talks about keeping guys at their own end of the field. That became easier when you saw this weather and you saw this football field.
How much of the game plan, Coach, do you throw out the window, if any, or pick a page from a foul weather book that you weren't?
Tell me where I am on the field. If I'm on my own end, deep in my own territory, I'm running straight ahead. I'm not pitching the ball out. I'm not running any high-risk plays. I'm not doing any of that. Now, if I get it down on their end, then I'm going to try a little something a little more flamboyant. But the thing that's going to lose this game is mistakes, and it's where they are made that's going to determine the winner and loser of this game.
It was often said, though, as a wide receiver, even though it was rough, you know, with the footing, Key, you know where you're going, and the DB doesn't know where you're going. Now, I'm not saying you're doing, as you call it,